The huntmaster called it prey before the net even closed, and that single word was the last mistake the Skarn Hound line ever made together. On the bridge of the lead hunter ship Taro's Maw, the pack reader Vesh Korin leaned over the long curve of the sensor pit and watched the small human ship drift into the trap like an animal that did not know it was already dead. The thing was tiny, 400 meters, barely, with a blunt gray nose and a hull marked by old scoring, the kind of marks a vessel earned when it had spent too long in places that wanted to kill it. It carried no fleet. It carried no escort. It crossed into the Skarn netting grid alone, and the grid was 8,000 hunter ships wide. "Range 9 light seconds," Vesh said. His voice came out flat, the way a reader's voice was supposed to. A pack reader did not feel. A pack reader counted. "Target is slowing. It has not changed course since we lit the net." The huntmaster, Drael San, did not look up from the killboard. He was old for a Skarn, his crest gone pale at the edges, his claws filed down by 1,000 closings. 41 years he had run the hound line through the soft worlds at the rim, and in 41 years he had never lost a thing he had named prey. He named this one without ceremony. "Prey," he said. "Close the net. Quarter speed. Let it feel the walls before we take it." The order went out across 8,000 hulls, and the Skarn obeyed the way water obeyed a slope. Their ships were beautiful, in the cold way of weapons built by hunters. Long and ribbed and barbed at the prow, each hunter ship was a single grasping shape, and when 8,000 of them moved at once, the grid drew tight like a fist around the little gray human ship. The net was not metal, it was ships, and the spaces between ships, and the firing arcs that filled those spaces. Nothing had ever crossed out of a closed Skarn net. That was not pride, that was record. Vesh watched the human vessel hold its course. It did not fire, it did not run, it did not even raise the small field bubbles that softer species threw up when they finally understood. It simply slowed, and turned its blunt nose a few degrees, and went quiet. "It has stopped broadcasting," Vesh reported. It was never broadcasting much. A single carrier signal. No distress. No challenge. "Good," Drael said. "A quiet kill is a clean kill." But something snagged in Vesh's count, the way a thread snags on a barb. He pulled the human ship's profile up across the pit and let the layers stack. Hull mass, drive signature, heat bloom, the slow grinding hum of whatever powered the thing. He had read 10,000 prey ships in his life. He knew the shape of fear in a drive signature, the small panicked surges, the wasted fuel. This ship had none of that. Its power curve was flat and deep and patient, like a held breath that did not need to be let go. "Huntmaster," Vesh said, "its reactor output is wrong." Drael flicked a claw, dismissive. "Wrong how? Wrong high. For a hull this size, it should be running at perhaps 200 units. It is running at 9,000 and holding. It is not spending the power. It is only making it." For the first time, the old Skarn looked up. His eyes were the deep gold of his kind, slitted, ancient. "Then it is a fool with a furnace too big for its boat. We will take the furnace too." He turned back to the killboard. "Begin the closing. First ring, advance." The first ring of hunter ships, 200 of them, slid inward. The grid tightened. On the pit, the gap between the human ship and the nearest barb prow shrank from 9 light seconds to 7, to 5, to 3. Still the human ship did nothing. Vesh's claws curled against the rim of the pit. He had been a reader long enough to know that doing nothing was the loudest thing a ship could do. "It sees us," he murmured. "It sees all 8,000 of us, and it has not moved to save itself." "Because it cannot," Drael said. "That is what prey is, the thing that cannot." Vesh wanted to believe him. He had believed him for 41 years. The hound line did not lose, because the hound line did not let a thing inside the net it could not break, and the huntmaster's eye for what could be broken had never once failed. But the reader's whole trade was the small wrong note, the thread off the weave, and the longer the little gray ship sat at the center doing nothing, the louder the wrong note grew. Prey burned fuel. Prey panicked. Prey threw up shields, or wept across the radio bands, or turned to run in the one direction the net had quietly left open, precisely so the hunters could watch the hope die. This ship had done none of it. It had come into the grid the way a worker comes into a room it has been called to inspect, glanced at the 8,000 barbed shapes around it, and set itself to its task. Huntmaster, Vesh said. It carries the registry mark of a survey service. The hull number reads as a catalog number. There is a word on the prow in their own script. The translator gives it as audit. Drayle clicked once. Lo. A counting ship. A clerk's boat. Better still. The clerk wandered too far from his ledgers and into my sky. He looked down at the little vessel with something close to satisfaction. The soft ones send out counters, and mappers, and namers. They believe the universe can be filed. We will file this one ourselves. But Vesh had served under 3 huntmasters before Drayle, and he had read the boats of 9 soft species, and he knew one thing the others on the bridge did not seem to know. A people did not send a single unarmed clerk into a sky full of hunters by accident. Either they were fools, or the boat was not what it said on the prow, and in 41 years of reading the dark, Vesh had never once met a fool with a furnace 9,000 units deep. A junior at the comms arch turned, crest twitching. Huntmaster, we have a transmission from the target. Voice. Their own language, but they have keyed it to the open net so we all hear it. Every ship in the grid. Drayle's crest rose, a flicker of irritation. Prey was not supposed to talk on the kill channel. That was the hunter's channel. Play it, he said, so the pack can hear what a dying thing sounds like. The voice that filled 8,000 bridges was calm. It was a human female voice, even and unhurried, and a translation crawled under it half a beat behind. The Skarn did not know the name yet, but they would learn it. The voice belonged to Commander Iris Falk, and her ship was called the Quiet Audit, and she was not afraid. Skarn Houndline, the voice said. This is the survey vessel, Quiet Audit. You have lit a weapons grid around a registered human ship in unclaimed space. I am required to tell you, once, that you have made an error. You have called this ship Prey. I am going to give you 90 seconds to open your net and let me leave. After that, I stop being required to tell you anything. The bridge of Taro's Maw filled with the low clicking laughter of hunters. It rolled from station to station, claw against console, the sound the Skarn made instead of joy. The Drayle sound let it run. Then he keyed his own voice to the open net, so that his answer too would reach all 8,000 hulls and the small gray ship at the center of them. Little vessel, he said, you have wandered into the oldest net in this arm of the sky. There are 8,000 of us. There is one of you. You have 90 seconds to spend, and you have spent 6 of them telling me a story. I have hunted softer things than you that begged better. Spend your time as you like. When it runs out, I will open you up and read what is inside, and then I will read your furnace, and then there will be one less voice that thinks it can speak on my channel. He cut the link. The clicking laughter swelled again. Vesh did not laugh. He was watching the count under the human ship's name, the flat, deep 9,000-unit power curve that had not so much as flickered while the Huntmaster spoke. And he was watching something else now, something new, a second reading that had appeared the instant Drayle cut the link. All across the human hull, in patterns too even to be damage, and too cold to be drive heat, points of energy were beginning to wake. Huntmaster, Vesh said quietly, the prey is opening ports. Of course it is. It will try to sting before it dies. They all do. No, Vesh said. He counted the ports as they appeared, and the number climbed faster than he could speak it. These are not gun ports. They are too small, and there are too many. 40 of them. 60. 100. They are everywhere on the hull. It is not arming to fight us. He looked up, and for the first time in 41 years of clean closings, the pack reader of Taro's Maw felt the cold thing crawl up the back of his neck that prey was supposed to feel. Not hunters. Huntmaster. It is not the hull. The hull is the smallest part of it. The countdown the human had given them stood at 62 seconds. Drayle-san finally rose from the kill board, his old joints creaking, and crossed to the sensor pit, and looked down at the readings with his own gold eyes. He saw the flat power curve. He saw the 100 waking ports. He saw the way the small gray ship sat at the dead center of his perfect net, untroubled, patient, the way a thing sits when it is not the one that has been caught. What is it making? He said. Not a question to Vesh, a question to the dark. The human voice came back on the open net, unhurried as ever, and now there was something underneath the calm that had not been there before, something the translator could not soften, something every hunter on every bridge understood in their spine, before the words even finished crossing. 40 seconds, Huntmaster, said Commander Iris Falk. You should have opened the net. And the points of light on the little gray hull, all 100 and then 200, and then more, stopped being points of light, and began, very quietly, to move. Vesh Korin watched the lights begin to move, and felt 41 years of certainty go thin beneath him, like ice over deep water. He had read 10,000 kills. He had never once read the moment when the thing in the net stopped being the thing in the net, and became something the net was inside of. He read it now, and he had no word for it, and the lack of the word was the most frightening reading of his life. The points of light left the human hull the way seeds leave a pod that has waited a long time to open. Vesh Korin watched the count of them climb past 300, and stopped trying to be a count at all. They were small, each no larger than a single hunter ship's claw, and they did not flare or roar the way Skarn weapons did. They simply detached, in silence, in their hundreds, and arranged themselves in the empty space around the quiet audit, and waited. Vesh had read 1,000 things that fought. He had never read a thing that deployed. Huntmaster, he said, the objects are not projectiles. They are under power. Each one has its own drive signature. They are holding position around the ship. They are not coming toward us. Then they are toys, Draelson said, but he had not gone back to the killboard. He stood at the rim of the pit with his pale crest flat against his skull, and his old gold eyes moved across the readings, hunting for the shape of the trick. There was always a trick. Soft species lived by tricks because they could not live by strength. He had broken 100 tricks. Pack reader. What is their function? Unknown. They carry no warhead I can read, no mass driver, no beam emitter. Their hulls are mostly sensor and antenna. Huntmaster, I think they are listening. Listening. Drael clicked, low and uncertain. A weapon does not listen. No, Vesh agreed. A weapon does not. But I am not certain anymore that those are weapons. He pulled one of the small objects up alone across the pit, and turned it in the light of the readings, and studied its shape, which was almost all dish and almost no engine, a thing built to gather, not to throw. Huntmaster, in 41 years has the hound line ever lit a net around a ship that answered by spreading 300 ears across the sky? Drael did not answer, because the answer was no, and a Huntmaster did not say a number out loud that he did not like. The countdown Falk had given them reached 0. Nothing happened. For one held breath across 8,000 bridges, nothing happened at all, and the clicking laughter began to return, low and uncertain at first, and then louder, because surely this was the trick. Surely the soft thing had spent its last threat, and there had been nothing behind it, and now the net could close, and the kill could be clean. Drael's crest lifted a fraction. He opened his mouth to give the order. Then every Skarn ship in the first ring went dark. Not destroyed, dark. 200 hunter ships, the closest ring of the net, simply stopped. Their drive glow died. Their weapon arcs collapsed. Their running lights and their sensor masts and their kill boards all went black between one heartbeat and the next. And on the pit of Taro's maw, the bright cluster of the first ring became 200 cold points drifting without power, exactly where they had been, doing nothing, able to do nothing. The laughter stopped. Report, Drael said, and his voice had changed. Not afraid, not yet, but the flatness had gone out of it. First ring is unresponsive, the comms junior said, claws moving fast across the arch. All 200. No distress, no damage signature, no hull breach. They are simply not answering. It is as if they were switched off. A weapon does not switch a ship off, Drael said. It breaks it. Tear it apart. What broke them? Nothing broke them, Huntmaster. Vesh's voice had gone very quiet. He had pulled the dead ship's last readings up across the pit, and was reading them the way a hunter reads a cooling track. There was no impact, no energy strike. 1 instant before they went dark, every ship in the first ring received a transmission. From the small objects, the listening objects. The transmission lasted 0.04 of a second, and then the ships stopped. He looked up. They did not kill the ships. They spoke to them, and the ships obeyed. Ships do not obey strangers, Drael said. Our hulls are sealed against intrusion. There is no command a foreign signal can give a Skarn ship that the ship will take. There is one, Huntmaster. Vesh said it slowly, because he had only just read it. The command to power down for a hull breach. Every Skarn ship will take it from any source, instantly. No challenge. Because a ship that argues about whether to power down during a breach is a ship that kills its own crew. The humans did not break our security. They found the one command our security is built to never question, and they spoke it, 200 times, in 400ths of a second. He swallowed. They read the rule that keeps us alive, and they turned it into the rule that switches us off. On the open net, Iris Falk's voice returned, and now it carried that calm down through 8,000 listening hulls, like cold water poured into a wound. I told you that you had made an error, she said. You called this a survey ship. You were right. That is exactly what it is. We do not arm survey ships with guns, Huntmaster, because survey ships do not go where there are guns. We arm them with this. Every closed network has a key. Yours took my forward array 40 seconds to find. The objects you are watching are not weapons. They are the rest of the audit. Drael-san crossed to the comms arch in 3 long strides. Sever every external link, he ordered. Now, no ship in this net takes a transmission from anything but my voice. Close the receivers. Go dark to them. Huntmaster, if we close the receivers, we lose the net coordination. The grid will scatter. Then it scatters. Better a scattered pack than a switched-off one. Do it. The order went out, and across the second ring and the third, the hunter ships shuttered their receivers, and the perfect lattice of the net began to come apart at the edges, as ships lost the shared picture that held them in formation. Vesh felt it on the pit, as the clean geometry of 8,000 hulls turned ragged and uncertain, and he understood, with the slow horror of a reader who has finally read the whole track, that this too was part of it. Falk had not needed to switch off the rest of the net. She had only needed to make Drael afraid enough to break his own. They are loose, Vesh said. Huntmaster, the second ring has lost coordination. They are firing on shadows. 3 ships have struck each other. It was true. With their receivers shuttered and their shared net picture gone, the hunter ships of the second ring could no longer tell friend from foe in the cluttered dark, and the barbed prows that had been built to grasp soft things now grasped at one another. A hunter ship was a single grasping shape with weapons only at the prow, made to face one way, toward the prey at the center. With the center gone dark to them and their flanks blind, they turned on the only motion they could see, which was each other. Restore the receivers, Drael snarled. Half power, filtered. Take nothing from the small objects, but take the net. We cannot filter them, Huntmaster. The comms junior's crest was flat with fear now. The objects are speaking on our own net frequency, our own command channel. If we open the receivers to hear ourselves, we hear them. There is no gap. They moved into the gap before we closed it. Then there is no safe choice, Drael said, half to himself. Open the receivers and they speak the breach command and we go dark. Close them and we blind ourselves, and turn on each other. Every door out of this net leads back into it. He looked at the pit with the dawning recognition of a hunter who has finally felt the walls of a trap that has no visible walls. She did not build a cage around us. She found the cage we already live in and showed us the bars. The quiet audit had not moved. That was the thing Vesh could not look away from. At the dead center of the unraveling net, the small gray human ship sat exactly where it had entered, blunt-nosed and patient, its flat 9,000-unit power curve unchanged, surrounded by its quiet listening swarm. It had not fired a shot. It had not raised a shield. It had said 3 sentences and let the oldest net in the arm tear itself. Pack reader, Drael said. He had come back to the pit and was standing very close, his pale crest near Vesh's shoulder, and when he spoke it was low, for Vesh alone. 41 years. I have never opened a net for prey. If I open it now, the hound line will know I ran from one small ship. I will be a huntmaster who let a thing he named prey walk out of a closed grid. Huntmaster, Vesh kept his eyes on the pit. If you do not open it, I do not think there will be a hound line left to know. Drael was silent a long moment. Then he straightened, and his old voice found its hard edge again, the edge of 41 years of clean kills, and he made the choice that a hunter makes when the prey will not behave like prey. All rings, he said, to the whole net, on the command channel, knowing the human swarm would hear it too and not caring. Full speed, converge, every ship, every gun, the center. We do not close the net, we collapse it. 8,000 hulls onto one, burn it out of the sky, and burn the small things with it. And 8,000 hunter ships, blind and ragged and frightened, turned their barbed prows inward and ran for the small gray ship at the heart of the net, all at once, from every direction, every weapon they had charging to fire. It should have ended there. That was the trap inside the trap, and Drayle had walked into it the moment he gave the order. Vesh saw it half a second too late to speak, and a full second too late to stop. The listening swarm around the quiet audit had spent that whole time doing exactly what Falk said. Listening, reading, mapping, every shuttered and unshuttered receiver, every firing arc, every command relay in 8,000 ships, all of it spoken aloud on the same crowded net frequency the swarm now owned. When Drayle gave the order to converge, he did not give it to his pack alone. He gave it to the audit, and the audit had been waiting for exactly one thing, for all 8,000 ships to point their weapons at the same place at the same time. Huntmaster, Vesh said, very fast now. Do not let them fire. Do not let them fire. The small things are not listening anymore. The small things are talking. The swarm transmitted. It was not 4/100ths of a second this time. It was a single pulse, sent at once to every hunter ship in the converging net, and it did not switch them off. It did something worse, something a reader could see in the readings, even as it happened, and not believe. It reached into the firing solution that every ship was already holding, the targeting lock that every gun in the net had set on the center of the grid, and it changed one value in each of them, not the trigger. The Skarn pulled their own triggers. It changed only where the guns were pointed, in the instant before they fired, by a few degrees, ship by ship, in a pattern the swarm had spent 40 seconds and then 6 minutes building from the net's own broadcasts. 8,000 hunter ships fired at the center of the net at the same moment. Not one shot reached the center. Every shot reached another hunter ship. The pit of Taro's maw turned into a wall of light. Vesh had read the readings of many battles, but he had never seen a battle that was only one side, fought entirely against itself. The converging rings of the net had been built to point inward, every prow toward the prey, every gun toward the heart, and the swarm had taken that perfect inward geometry and folded it by a few degrees, so that each barbed prow now faced not the center, but the ship beside it. When the order to fire ran down the net executed it flawlessly. 8,000 hunter ships destroyed each other in a single coordinated volley, aimed at a target that was no longer where their guns believed it to be. Cease fire, Drayle was shouting, on the command channel, into the same crowded net frequency the swarm owned. Cease fire, all rings, hold, hold. It did not matter. The volley had already gone. By the time his order crossed the net, the first ring of dead and the second ring of blinded had become a third thing, a spreading bloom of broken hulls, and the readings climbed so fast that Vesh stopped reading them aloud, because there was no point in a count that doubled while it left his mouth. He had entered this hunt as the pack reader of the oldest net in the arm. In the span of one volley, he had become a witness to its end. Status, Drayle said. The word came out cracked. Pack reader, give me a status. Vesh made himself read it. That was the trade. A reader read even when the reading was a wound. Of the 8,000 hulls in the net, he said, I count 2,100 still under power. The remainder are dark, drifting, or destroyed. The destruction was not done by the human ship. It was done by us. Every wreck I can read carries Skarn weapon signatures. Our own. He swallowed. We fired one volley. It cost us 5,900 ships. The bridge had gone silent in a way Vesh had never heard a hunter bridge go silent. The clicking laughter that the Skarn made instead of joy had a cousin they almost never made. A thin, high sound at the back of the throat, the sound of a hunter who has scented something larger than itself in the dark, and now that sound moved from station to station like a draft under a door. On the open net, Iris Falk's voice returned, as level as it had been at the start, as if nothing about the last 2 minutes had cost her a single rise of breath. That was the part I could not stop, she said. I want you to understand that. The first ring going dark, that was me. Scattering the second ring, that was me. But the volley, Huntmaster, the volley was yours. You gave the order. 8,000 guns. I only changed where they were already pointed. You pulled every trigger yourself. A pause, just long enough. I did warn you that I would stop being required to tell you anything. I am telling you this as a courtesy, not a requirement. You have about 4 minutes before the survivors realize that the only ship in this grid that has not fired a shot is mine, and that the only ship that has lost nothing is mine, and they begin to wonder what else I have not done yet. Drail-san stood at the rim of the pit, with the wreckage of 41 years drifting across the readings in front of him, and for a long moment, the old hunter did not speak. Vesh watched the choice move across his huntmaster's face, the way weather moves across a cold sky. The hound line did not run. The hound line did not open a net. The hound line did not let a thing it had named prey speak last on the kill channel. Every law of the hunter said, converge again, what was left of 2,000 ships against one, and finish it, because to do anything else was to admit the thing no hunter could admit, which was that the prey had never been prey. Pack reader, Drail said at last, very quietly, the small objects, the listening swarm. Where are they now? Vesh looked. His blood went cold a second time. They are gone, Huntmaster. Gone how? Destroyed in the volley? No, they were never in the volley's path. They are simply gone from my readings. The swarm dispersed during the firing, while every receiver in the net was full of the fire control transmission. I cannot find them. He worked the pit, layering scan over scan, and found nothing but his own dead. They could be anywhere in the grid by now, among the wrecks, among the survivors, inside the survivors' receiver range, listening to whatever the survivors say next. Inside our range, Drail repeated. They listen, Huntmaster. That is all they do. They listen, and they learn the net, and then they wait for us to point all our guns at one place. Vesh turned from the pit to face the old Skarn directly, something a pack reader did not do, and he did it anyway, because 41 years of clean kills was over, and there was no more time for the shape of things. If you order the survivors to converge again, we will give the swarm exactly what it needs to do this a second time. 2,000 ships pointed at one place. We will finish the kill the human did not have to finish. We will do it for her. For the first time Vesh could remember, the Huntmaster of Taro's Maw lowered his crest, not in fear, but in the slow recognition of a hunter who has finally seen the whole shape of the thing in the dark, and understood that it is not the kind of thing one converges on. Drail-san had hunted soft worlds at the rim for 41 years. He had broken 100 tricks, and he understood, standing at the rim of his ruined net, that this had not been a trick at all. A trick is a thing a weak animal does because it cannot fight. This was the opposite. This was a strong thing that had chosen not to fight, because making the hunters kill themselves cost it nothing, and Drail had been so certain of the word prey that he had handed it the means. What is she? He said. Not to Vesh, to the dark again, the way he had asked the first time, before any of it. An unarmed clerk's boat, with a furnace too big for its hull, and she has taken 6,000 of my ships without firing a shot. She did fire, Huntmaster. Vesh said it slowly, because the truth of it had only just arrived in him. She fired at the start. Her first shot was 3 sentences on the open net. Her second shot was making you afraid enough to shutter your own receivers. Her third shot was the swarm, and her fourth shot was your own order to converge. She has been firing this whole time. We only thought weapons had to be made of light. He looked back at the pit, at the slow drift of his dead. The boat is called Audit. I think the word means the same to them as it does to me. It means a thing comes to your sky to count what you are. Exactly. With no mercy and no error, and writes the true number down. On the readings, the 2,100 surviving hunter ships hung in the ruptured lattice of the net, leaderless at the edges, blind to one another where their receivers were still shuttered, and at their center sat the small gray ship, blunt-nosed, patient, its flat 9,000-unit power curve unchanged from the moment it had entered the grid, as if none of this had cost it anything at all, because none of it had. And somewhere among the wrecks and the survivors, scattered and silent and listening, 300 small things waited for the hound line to make one more mistake. The 2,100 survivors did not understand any of that. That was the cruelty of it, and Vesh saw the cruelty clearly now. The ships at the broken edges of the net had lost their receivers, and their shared picture in the moment of the volley, and so they did not know that they had fired on each other. They knew only that the net had erupted in light, and that thousands of their packmates were gone, and like any hunter who has been hurt in the dark, their first instinct was to find the thing that had hurt them and tear it apart. "Huntmaster," Vesh said, "the survivors are not panicking. They are reforming. They are pulling toward the center, toward her." "Of course they are," Royal said, and there was something close to grief in it now. "They do not know what I know. They think a great enemy struck them, and a hunter does not run from a great enemy. A hunter closes with it. They are doing the only honorable thing their training allows, and it is the one thing that will finish them." He keyed the command channel, his own voice, to what was left of his pack. "All survivors, this is the Huntmaster. Do not converge. Do not aim at the center. The thing in the center wants you to point your guns at one place. Hold where you are. Shutter nothing. Aim at nothing. The first ship that locks a firing solution on the center dies, and takes the ships beside it with it. I am ordering you to do nothing. Trust me, do nothing." For a moment, the readings held. The survivors slowed, uncertain, caught between 41 years of obedience to this voice, and 41 years of training that screamed at them to close with the enemy. Vesh watched the two instincts war across 2,000 hulls, and he understood that the only thing standing between the survivors and a second volley was the cracked, exhausted voice of an old hunter telling them, against everything they were, to hold still. It was, Vesh thought, the first order in the history of the Hound Line that a huntmaster had ever given to keep his pack from a kill, and it was working, barely, for now. The survivors held. The swarm, somewhere in the dark, listened to them hold, and did not need to act, because a ship that aims at nothing gives a listening weapon nothing to fold. "You learn fast, Huntmaster," Falk's voice, quiet, almost gentle. "Faster than anyone on your side ever has. Keep them still. Every second they do nothing is a second they live. I do not need them to die. I only needed you to understand that I could make them, any time you point them at one place. Now you understand. Now we wait for the rest." "The rest," Drael said. "The rest of what?" "The rest of the audit," said Iris Falk. "It is on its way. You called your whole pack to watch a clerk's boat die. I would not want the whole pack to miss the part where the clerk's boat explains why it came." The order Drael did not give was the only order that would have saved what was left of the Hound Line, and he could not bring himself to give it. "Open the net." 2 words. Vesh watched the Huntmaster stand over the pit with those 2 words trapped behind his teeth, and he understood that they would never come out, because a Huntmaster who opened a net for prey was a Huntmaster who had no pack at all. The Skarn followed strength. They had no word for a leader who flinched, so Drael did not flinch, and in the silence where the order should have been, the second mistake began to grow. It came from above. The Hound Line did not run alone in this arm. It answered to a war council aboard the throne ship Corvaneth, a vast ribbed vessel that hung 2 light minutes out, beyond the edge of the netting grid, watching the hunt the way the old watch the young. When the first ring went dark, the war council had said nothing. When 5,900 hulls fired on each other in a single volley, the war council found its voice. Taro's maw. The signal cut across the command channel, hard and high, the voice of war speaker Oath Vanek, who had never once in his long life been told no. "You have lost the net. We have watched you lose it. You will not lose it twice. The throne ship is moving to the grid. We bring 40,000 fresh hulls. The little ship will be taken, and you, Huntmaster, will explain to the council how one clerk's boat unmade the oldest net in the arm." Vesh felt the cold thing move again. 40,000. He pulled the throne ship's track up on the pit and watched the enormous shape of Corvaneth begin to swing toward the grid, and behind it, in a long bright wave, the reserve hunting fleets of the War Council were lighting their drives, 10 times the force the human ship had already broken without firing a shot. "War speaker," Drael said, and to his credit the old Huntmaster's voice did not shake. "Do not bring the throne ship into the grid. The small ship does not break us with weapons. It breaks us with our own. It listens to the net, and it turns the net against itself. If you bring 40,000 more hulls into its hearing, you bring it 40,000 more guns." A pause. Then the clicking laughter of a hunter who has decided not to believe what he has been told. "It turned the net against itself. Oath Vanek repeated. Huntmaster, you fired on your own pack, and now you blame a clerk. The council has seen panic before. We will not catch it from you. Hold position. We are coming. The link closed. Drayle stood very still. Then he turned to Vesh, and for the first time the old gold eyes held something Vesh had never seen in them. Not fear exactly, but the thing underneath fear. The cold, clear sight of a hunter, who has finally understood the shape of the thing, and knows that no one above him will believe it, until it has them too. Pack reader, he said. How long until the throne ship enters the little ship's hearing? Vesh read it. At its speed, 11 minutes. The reserve fleets, 14. And in 11 minutes, the small ship will have learned the throne ship's net, the way it learned mine. Yes, Huntmaster. Drayle looked down at the quiet audit on the pit, blunt-nosed and patient at the center of his ruin. Then, we have 11 minutes to do the one thing the council will not let us do. We have to make the small ship leave. He keyed the open net himself, the same channel Falk had used, the channel a Huntmaster was never supposed to beg on. Quiet audit. This is Drayle San, Huntmaster of the Hound Line. You asked me to open the net. I am opening it. The lanes to the rim are clear. Take them and go, and I will not follow, and I will tell the council you slipped us in the dark. It cost him everything to say it. Vesh could hear the cost in the cracks. Go now, before the throne ship arrives. You do not want to be in this grid when 40,000 more hulls enter it. For a long moment there was nothing. The human ship sat unmoved. Then Iris Falk answered, and her voice had changed, just slightly, the way a voice changes when its owner is choosing to tell the truth. Huntmaster San, she said, I believe you. I believe you would open the net, and I believe you would let me go. You are the first one on your side to understand what is happening, and that is worth something. So I am going to tell you the truth in return. A breath. I cannot leave. Not because I cannot reach the rim. I could be past your lanes before the throne ship arrives. I cannot leave because of why I came. Drayle's crest flattened. Why did you come? You raided a human way station 6 days ago, Falk said. A small one. 340 people. You called it prey too. You took it because it was soft and alone, and it could not fight you. And you did not think anyone would come, because no one had ever come before. You were right that it could not fight you. You were wrong about the part where no one comes. The calm in her voice had gone very deep now, deeper than the net could reach. I am the part where someone comes. That is the whole of what this ship is. I am not here to escape your net, Huntmaster. I am here to make sure the Hound Line never lights another one. And the throne ship arriving with 40,000 hulls is not a problem for me. It is the rest of the audit, arriving on its own. Vesh did not understand at first. Then he did, and the cold thing that had been crawling up his neck for the last quarter hour finally reached the top of his spine and stayed there. The 40,000 hulls were not reinforcements for the Skarn. They were targets for the swarm. Falk had not stayed in the net because she was trapped. She had stayed because the throne ship was coming into her hearing, and she meant to be there when it did. Huntmaster, Vesh said, very quietly, so that only Drayle could hear. She is not afraid of the throne ship. She wants the throne ship. The War Council is bringing the whole rest of the Hound Line into the one place in the arm where she can reach it. Drayle San closed his old gold eyes. When he opened them, he was a different kind of hunter than the one who had named the little ship prey a lifetime ago. War Speaker, he said, on the command channel, and now he did not bother to hide anything. Turn the throne ship around. Turn the reserve fleets around. The small ship is not trapped in the grid. The grid is a trap for us, and you are bringing the rest of the Hound Line into it. Do not enter its hearing. If you bring 40,000 hulls into range of that ship, you will lose them the way I lost mine, and you will lose them by your own order. The reply took 4 seconds. In those 4 seconds, Vesh watched the throne ship and its long, bright wave of reserve fleets cross the last of the open dark and slide toward the edge of the grid, and he tried one last thing, not with the War Speaker, who would not hear, but with the only other reader he could reach. There was a pack reader aboard Corvaneth. Her name came across as Sela Vor, and she was young and good, and trapped on a bridge where no one would let her say no any more than Vesh had been let. He opened the narrow private band that pack readers kept for sharing what their huntmasters did not want to hear. Reader Vor, he said, fast. The first net did not panic. It fired on itself. Every wreck carries our own weapon signatures. The small ship waits for us to point all our guns at one place, and then it moves where the place is. Tell your war speaker to hold still and live. A pause. When Celavor answered, her voice was the voice of a reader who has read the same thing and been told the same lie. I have told him. I read it the way you read it. He told me a reader who flinches, reads only her own fear, and confined me to my station. I see what is about to happen, and I cannot lift a claw to stop it. They made us readers so that we could see, Reader Corin, and then made certain we could never act on what we see. There it was, the whole shape of the Scarn Way in a single confession. The hunters had built readers to find the truth, and built huntmasters to ignore it, and called the arrangement strength. For 41 years it had worked, because the truth a reader found was always about soft things that could not punish the ignoring. Now the truth was about a thing that could. Read it true, Celavor, Vesh said. When the order comes and the white fills your pit, write down the real number, not the one the war speaker will want. Someone has to carry it home, and it is going to be you and me. They will spare the readers, because we are the only ones on our side who can read the warning and make the huntmasters believe it. We are the most useful thing the humans found in this grid, and the most useless thing our own side ever built. Read it true. That is all that is left. The throne ship crossed the edge of the grid. The reserve fleets crossed behind it. 40,000 fresh hunter ships entered the hearing of the quiet audit. All at once, in a long, bright, confident wave, exactly the way the first 8,000 had, certain that the thing at the center could not fight. And Vesh Corin sat at his pit and watched. On the readings, 300 small things begin, all at once, to wake. Huntmaster, he whispered, the swarm is moving, and it is not alone. He pulled the long-range readings up across the pit, the deep dark beyond the throne ship, and his voice went out of him for a moment before he found it again. There are more of them. Coming in from the rim, behind the reserve fleets, while the council was looking at us. 9 more parent hulls, 9 more like the quiet audit, each with a swarm of its own. They have been moving into position the whole time we were dying in the grid. Draelson looked at the 10 human survey ships now sealing the grid behind the throne ship, the way the throne ship had thought it was sealing the grid around the quiet audit, and the old hunter understood the last piece of it, the piece that had been true since the first word. The Hound Line had never closed a net around a human ship. The humans had closed a net around the Hound Line, and they had used the Hound Line's own certainty to do it, and the small gray ship at the center had not been the bait in the trap. It had been the door. She did not wander into my sky, Drael said softly, to the dark. I wandered into hers. I named her prey, and I called my whole pack to come and watch, and she let me, because she needed all of us in one place. He laughed once, the thin, high sound, the sound a hunter makes when the thing in the dark turns out to be larger than the hunter. 41 years, and the cleanest net I ever ran was the one I never knew I was inside. On the open channel, Iris Falk's voice came one more time, even and unhurried and kind, in a way that was worse than any threat. Kind, the way the truth is kind. You raided a station of 340 people 6 days ago because you were certain no one would come. I want the last thing the Hound Line hears to be the correction. Someone always comes. We are just usually too far away in time for you to connect the raid to the answer. This time we were close. You should have opened the net, Huntmaster. Not for me, for them. And the audit began. It did not begin with light or fire. It began with the running lights. Vesh had spent his whole life learning to read what fleets did. He had never had to read what a fleet did when it could no longer trust a single instrument aboard it. That was the thing the audits did, and they began to do it to 40,000 ships the moment the reserve fleets crossed into hearing. All across the bright wave, the running lights of the Scarn hunter ships, the small steady markers each ship showed so its packmates could find it in the dark, began to lie. Not go dark. Lie. A ship would show its position as one place, and be in another. The swarms had learned the throne ship's net, the way they had learned the first net, by listening, and the first thing they did with it was reach into the running lights and move them, a hair, then a degree, then a ship's length, so that on every hunter bridge in the reserve fleets, the picture of where everyone was stopped matching where everyone actually was. They are blinding them with their own eyes, Vesh said. not breaking the lights, moving them. Every ship in the reserve fleet sees a fleet that is not there. On the readings, the long bright wave began to lose its shape. Ships slowed, uncertain, because their packmates were not where the net said they were. Ships turned, hunting for a formation that had quietly slid out from under them. Vesh watched the geometry of 40,000 hulls go soft the same way the first 8,000 had. And he knew what came next, because he had seen it come next once already today. But the War Council did not know. That was the thing. Drael had learned it, and Drael had been relieved for learning it. The bridges of the reserve fleets were full of hunters who had watched the Houndline's first net die on their long-range readings and had been told, by the war speaker himself, that it was panic, that it was an old huntmaster's failure of nerve. So when their running lights began to lie, they did not believe what was happening to them. They believed what they had been told to believe. They believed the small ship could not fight. Across the private reader's band, Vesh heard Celavor one more time, her voice very low, almost steady, the voice of someone watching a flood reach the bottom step. Our running lights are moving on my pit too. The whole reserve fleet is wandering. The captains are reporting phantom contacts in every quarter. They are asking the war speaker for orders. A pause. Reader Corin. He is going to give them. I can feel it. He cannot stand a fleet that wanders. He is going to tell them to converge on the original target and burn the center of the grid until the phantoms stop. And the moment he does... I know, Vesh said. I know what the moment he does means. There is nothing either of us can do but read it. Then read it with me, Celavor said. I do not want to be the only reader watching this happen. Stay on the band. Read it true beside me. When we carry it home, let us carry the same number, so that no huntmaster can ever tell us we each saw our own fear. I am here, Vesh said. I am reading it with you. On the command channel, in a voice that had never once been told no, War Speaker Oth Vanek gave the order that Drael had begged him not to give, the order the swarms had crossed the dark and waited a quarter of an hour and spread 300 ears across the grid to receive. All reserve fleets, the War Speaker said. The grid is full of phantom contacts. The clerk's ship is hiding among them. Do not chase phantoms. Converge on the original target coordinates. Full speed, all guns. We will burn the center of the grid until there is nothing left to hide in. Execute. Vesh closed his eyes. He did not need to watch this part. He had watched it once already. But he opened them anyway, because a reader reads, even the wounds, especially the wounds, and because somewhere on a confined station on a throne ship bridge, another reader was opening her eyes too, so that the two of them could carry the same true number home. 40,000 hunter ships turned their barbed prows toward the center of the grid, where the original target coordinates lay, where the quiet audit had been an hour ago and was no longer, and they ran for it at full speed, all guns charging, exactly as 40,000 certain ships had been asked to do. The swarms had spent the whole approach learning where every gun in the reserve fleets was pointed. They did not need to move the guns this time. They had learned something better. They had learned the running lights, and the running lights were what every ship aimed by when it aimed at the center of the grid, and the running lights had been lying since the moment the fleets crossed the rim. Every ship in the reserve fleets aimed at the center of the grid, using a picture of the grid that the swarms had drawn. In that picture, the center of the grid was not the center of the grid. It was wherever the swarms had decided to put it. And the swarms had decided to put it, for each individual ship, precisely on top of the ship's own nearest packmate. 40,000 hunter ships fired at the center of the grid. The center of the grid was each other. Vesh had thought the first volley was the worst thing he would ever read. He was wrong. The first volley had been 8,000 ships. This was 40,000, and they were packed tighter, and they fired with the full confidence of a force that had been told its enemy could not fight. And the readings did not climb this time so much as they simply filled, white, edge to edge, as the reserve fleets of the Hound Line poured their entire weight of fire into themselves in a single coordinated instant of perfect obedient certainty. On the private band, Celavor made a sound he had never heard a reader make, and then she went silent. And then, after a moment, in a voice scraped down to nothing, she said the number aloud, the real one, so that it would be carried home by 2 readers, and not 1. Vesh said it back to her, the same number, and they held it between them across the dark like 2 hands around a thing too hot to hold alone. When the white faded, Corvaneth was still there. The throne ship was vast and old and heavily armored, and it had been at the rear of the wave, and it survived the volley its own fleets had fired. Around it, the 40,000 were a field of breaking light. Vesh did not try to count them. There was no number a reader could say aloud that would mean anything more than the one Sci-Fi War had already said. He looked instead at the throne ship, alone now, in a grid full of its own dead, and he watched War Speaker Oth Vanek finally, far too late, begin to understand. "What did you do?" the War Speaker said. He had keyed the open net, the way Drael had, the way prey was never supposed to be spoken to on. His voice had lost every hard edge it had ever had. "What did you do to my fleets?" Iris Falk answered him the way she had answered all of it. "Nothing," she said. "You did it. Every ship that fired, fired because you ordered it to. Every gun that aimed wrong, aimed at the place your own running lights told it to. I did not destroy your fleets, War Speaker. I only let them keep believing the one thing they were certain of, that the small ship could not fight, and that numbers were the only law. You brought 40,000 hulls to enforce a law I do not obey, and the law took them, not me. You are one ship," Oth Vanek said. It came out of him like the last belief he had. One small clerk's ship. "There are 10 of us," Falk said. "And no, War Speaker, there is one of you. The throne ship Corv Aneth, the last hull of the Hound Line that lit a net around 340 people 6 days ago and called them prey because no one had ever come." The points of light across 10 human hulls shifted, all of them, toward the one ship left. "You are about to find out what the rest of the audit is for." Vesh watched the throne ship hang alone in the field of its dead, and beside him, Drael San watched it too, and the old hunter spoke without turning. "He has a reader aboard," Drael said. "I can hear her in your silences, pack reader. You have been talking to her." "Sci-Fi War," Vesh said. "She read it true. She read all of it true. From her station, confined, and she could not stop a single ship. She carried the number with me so we would carry the same one home." "Then she is the only thing the Council has left worth saving," Drael said. "And I think the small ship knows it." He was right. The swarms drifting in around Corvaneth did not touch the reader's station. They did not touch the throne ship at all. They simply surrounded it and went quiet, the way the audit always went quiet at the end, and waited for the powerful to finally understand exactly how small they had been the whole time. For a long moment, the throne ship did nothing. Vesh could imagine the bridge of Corv Aneth, the War Speaker who had never been told no, standing over a fire control board that no longer meant anything, surrounded by 300 small things that had broken 2 fleets without firing a shot, and a young reader at her confined station who had seen all of it coming and been forbidden to act. Vesh wondered what Sci-Fi War was doing now. Then he heard her, faint, on the private band, and he understood. "He is reaching for the fire control board," she said. "He is going to order the throne ship to fire on the survey ship, the last gun the Hound Line has. Reader Corin, he is going to do the one thing she is waiting for. He is going to point the last gun at one place." "Sci-Fi War," Vesh said, fast. "You are at your station. You are confined, but you are at your station. Is your station near the fire control board?" A pause, a long one. Then, very quietly, "It is the next board over." "Then do the thing they built you never to do," Vesh said. "Read it true, and then act on what you read, just once, for the 81 who lived, and the 259 who did not, and for every soft thing your hunt masters ever called prey. Do not let him point the last gun. Be the reader who lifts a claw." The throne ship did not fire. On the open net, after a long silence, it was not the War Speaker's voice that came, but a younger one, tight and shaking and clear. "This is Reader Sci-Fi War of the throne ship Corvaneth," she said. "The War Speaker is no longer at the fire control board. I have him from it. The throne ship will not fire. I am reading you true, survey vessel, the way I have read this whole hunt true, and I am asking you the only thing a reader can ask. Tell me what you want, and let it be a thing I can carry home." And here, at the end of it, the throne ship did the one thing none of the others had done, the thing Drael San had begged for and never received, the thing a Skarn was not built to do. It yielded, and it yielded through a reader, the most useful and most powerless thing the Hound Line had ever built, who had finally, at the very end, been allowed by no one but herself to act on what she saw. For the first time, the small gray ship at the center of everything moved. The quiet audit, which had not changed position since it entered the grid more than an hour ago, which had sat blunt-nosed and patient through the deaths of 48,000 ships, turned its old scarred nose toward the throne ship and crossed the dark toward it, alone, while its 9 sisters held back, and the 300 small things that had broken 2 fleets without a shot drifted in closer around the great ribbed shape of Corv Aneth and went quiet, and waited, the way the audit always waited, for the powerful to finally understand exactly how small they had been the whole time. "I do not want anything from your council, Reader Vor," Iris Falk said, as the quiet audit drew alongside the throne ship that had come to take it. "I came for one thing, and the war speaker has already given it. You will all go home. This one ship, and you, reader, will tell the Hound Line, and the council, and every huntmaster who ever lit a net at the rim, exactly what happened here. Not the version where you fought bravely, and were beaten by a great fleet. The true version. The version where you brought 48,000 hulls to take one survey ship that never fired a shot, and you destroyed every one of them yourself, by your own orders, because you were certain to the very end that the small thing could not fight." Her voice did not rise. It never had. "That is the audit. We come, and we count what you are, exactly, and we make the powerful carry the true number home. You called a station of 340 people prey. The number you carry home is 48,000. Remember which one came first." The throne ship hung in the dark, alone, surrounded, spared. And Vesh Korin, on the bridge of a relieved huntmaster's ship at the edge of the grid, understood that he had just watched the end of the oldest hunting force in the arm, and that it had not been killed. It had been corrected. And the correction had come, in the end, not from the humans, but from a young reader who had finally lifted a claw, because the humans had built their whole audit to make exactly that moment possible, and to leave the powerful alive to remember it. But the audit was not finished, because the audit was never only about the ships. While the quiet audit drew alongside Corv Aneth, the 9 sister ships at the edge of the grid did something Vesh did not expect, and he read every step of it with the slow dread of a hunter watching a thing he cannot stop and cannot look away from. The swarms of the 9 sisters, perhaps 2,700 small listening things, did not converge on the throne ship. They spread. They moved outward, away from the killing ground, into the long lanes that led from the grid to the rest of the Hound Line's domain, the supply routes, and the staging posts, and the slow tankers that fed the great hunting fleets. And they settled along those lanes the way one settles markers along a border, and they went quiet, and they listened. "What are they doing?" Drael said. "The throne ship has yielded. The hunt is over. Why are they spreading?" "Because the throne ship is not the Hound Line," Vesh said, and as he said it, he understood it. The last layer of the thing, the layer that made the whole quarter hour into something larger than a battle. The throne ship is one ship and a war council. The Hound Line is staging posts and tankers and shipyards and 100,000 hulls we never brought to this grid. She did not come to break the fleet that came. She came to break the certainty of the fleet that did not. He pulled the lanes up on the pit, the bright thin web of supply that held the whole hunting force together across the arm, and he watched the small things settle onto it, node by node. The 9 sisters are not weapons on those lanes. They are witnesses. Every supply post they sit beside, every tanker that passes them, will carry home the same thing. That there are small gray ships on the lanes now. That the lanes are heard. That the Hound Line raided one human station and lost 48,000 hulls, and that the things which did it are still out here, quiet, listening, on every road the fleet uses to feed itself. "They are not taking the domain," Drael said slowly. "They are haunting it. They are auditing it, the whole of it, not with fire, with presence. Every huntmaster in the arm is going to spend the rest of his life knowing the small ships are on the lanes, and not knowing where, and not knowing what they have learned, and never being able to light a net again without wondering whether the thing at the center is the thing he thinks it is." Vesh turned from the pit. "She is not going to fight the Hound Line, Huntmaster. She is going to make the Hound Line afraid to be the Hound Line. That is the audit. It does not end when the battle ends. It ends when the certainty ends. And the certainty is going to take a generation to die, and the small ships are going to sit on the lanes the whole time and make sure it does. On the open net, War Speaker Oth Vanek found one last fragment of the voice that had never been told no. You cannot hold the lanes, he said. 10 ships cannot hold the lanes of a domain this size. The moment you leave, we will take them back. We will rebuild the fleets. We will light new nets. You have won an hour, survey vessel, not a war. I have not won anything, War Speaker, because I am not at war with you, Iris Falk said, and there was something almost tired in it. The tiredness of a teacher who has said the same true thing many times to students who do not want to learn it. You keep reaching for the word war, because war is a thing you understand. War has two sides, and a winner, and rebuilt fleets, and new nets. This is not that. This is an audit. An audit does not need to hold the lanes. It needs you to know the lanes can be heard, and now you do, and the knowing is the thing that does not get rebuilt. You can light 1,000 new nets. Every one of them, from now until the end of the Hound Line, you will light wondering whether the small thing in the center is the thing you think it is, and whether somewhere out past the rim there are 40 more ships you cannot see, and whether the raid you are about to make has already been connected to an answer that is already on its way. I have not taken your fleets, War Speaker. I have taken your certainty. You will not get it back, because I am leaving it broken on purpose, exactly where you can always see it. Vesh watched the War Speaker have no answer, and he understood that this was the true end of it, not the volley, not the yield, but this. The moment a being who had never been told no, understood that he had been told no by the universe itself, quietly, completely, and that the no would follow him home and sit on his lanes and outlive him. The 48,000 were a number. The broken certainty was the wound, and the wound would not close, because the small gray ships meant for it not to. Reader Vor, Falk said, on the open net, to the young reader who had lifted a claw. I am going to leave you something, and I want you to understand why. When the council asks you how the Hound Line fell, they will not want the true number, and they will not want the true reason, and they will try to make you say it was a great fleet, or a trick, or your huntmaster's bad luck. You will be the only one aboard who knows it was none of those things. It was a station of 340 people that you were certain no one would come for. Hold to that. Be the reader who lifts a claw a second time, in the council chamber, when it costs you more than it costs you now. That is the thing I am leaving you. Not a weapon, a duty, the same one I carry. Someone has to be the part where someone comes, and on your side, from now on, that someone is you. There was a silence. Then Selavor, in a voice that had stopped shaking, said, I will carry it. I will read it true in the chamber, and I will not let them make it a great fleet. I will make them say the station first. Then the audit is complete, Iris Falk said, because the true measure of what we did here today was never the 48,000. It was one reader on the throne ship who, at the very end, decided that what she saw mattered more than what she was allowed to do about it. That is the only thing in this whole grid worth keeping, and you kept it yourself, before I ever spoke to you. Go home, Reader Vor. All of you, and tell it true. The quiet audit drew back from the throne ship at last, leaving it whole, leaving it alone, leaving it surrounded by lanes that would never again be only the Hound Lines. And Vesh Korin, at his darkened pit, understood that he had watched the humans do the one thing the Skarn had never imagined a thing could do to a hunter. They had not killed the predator. They had made it know, forever, that it was no longer the largest thing in the dark, and they had left it alive to live inside that knowing every single day for the rest of its life. For a long time after the throne ship yielded, no one on the bridge of Taro's Maw said anything at all. Vesh Korin had read the end of many hunts. They were always loud. The Skarn marked a kill with the clicking laughter, the shared sound of a pack that had eaten well, rolling from station to station, until the whole ship rang with it. There was no clicking now. There would never be clicking on this ship again, Vesh thought, and the thought did not feel like grief, exactly, because grief was a thing you felt for something that should have lasted, and the silence on the bridge felt instead like the first honest sound the Hound Line had made in 41 years. He looked around at the crew. The gunners sat at boards that had nothing to fire on. The net keepers sat at a net that no longer existed. The junior at the comms arch had his crest flat against his skull and his claws still, and he was staring at the pit the way a young hunter stares at the first thing that has ever frightened him, which is the same way every soft creature the hound line had ever cornered had stared at the hound line. Vesh understood, watching him, that the crew had spent the last hour learning the one lesson the Skarn had been spared for their entire history. They had learned what it felt like to be the smaller thing. Pack reader. Drael's voice was quiet, from the rim of the pit. The crew needs an order. Any order. They have never been on a ship that lost. They do not know how to stand on one. I am not certain I do either, Huntmaster. No, Drael said, but you are the only one aboard who understood it as it happened, and the crew can feel that. They will take an order from you that they would not take from me, because I am the one who named the small ship Prey, and you are the one who tried to tell me not to. He turned his old gold eyes on Vesh. Give them something to do. A hunter who has nothing to do with his claws turns them inward. I have seen ships lose their crews to the silence after a loss. Do not let this one. Vesh thought about it. Then he keyed the internal channel, the one that reached every station, and he gave the first order of his life that was not a count. All stations, he said. We have survivors in the grid, 2,100 hulls of the first net, holding still where the Huntmaster told them to hold. Some of them have wounded. Some of them have lost their readers and their captains, and do not know what has happened to them. We are going to reach every one of them, and we are going to tell them the truth, and we are going to bring them home. That is the order. We stop counting our dead, and we start gathering our living. Begin. Across the bridge, slowly, the crew began to move. It was not the sharp, eager movement of a pack closing on a kill. It was something the Skarn had no word for, something slower and heavier, and, Vesh thought, more worth having, the movement of a crew that has been given a reason to stand on a ship that lost. The netkeepers began to map the survivors. The comms junior began to raise them, one by one, and tell them, in a voice that shook and then steadied, that the hunt was over, that the small ship had won, that they were to hold still and wait, and they would be brought home. And as the survivors answered, one after another, Vesh read something in their voices that he had never read in a Skarn voice before, and it took him a moment to name it, because he had only ever read it in the soft species the hound line hunted. It was relief. The survivors were not ashamed that the hound line had lost. They were relieved that the killing had stopped. Somewhere in the last hour, 2,100 hunters had discovered, each alone at his own darkened station, that he had never actually wanted to be a hunter as much as he had wanted to not be the smaller thing, and now that he was the smaller thing, and had survived it, the wanting had simply fallen away. They are glad it is over, Vesh said, half to himself. Huntmaster, the survivors are glad it is over. Not glad they lost, glad it stopped. I did not know our people could feel that. Our people have never been allowed to feel that, Drael said. Gladness that the killing stopped is a thing only the prey is permitted, because the hunter who feels it stops being a hunter. The council bred it out of us, or thought it had. It seems it only buried it. He looked out at the grid, at the field of his own dead, at the small gray ships beginning to peel away toward the rim. She did not only end our fleet, pack reader, she dug up the thing the council buried. Every survivor who goes home glad it stopped is a survivor who will never light a net the same way again. That is in the audit too, I think. She knew it would be. On the open net, as if she had heard him, Iris Falk's voice came once, not to the war speaker, not to Drael, but to the whole grid, to the 2,100 survivors gathering toward home. You are allowed to be glad it stopped, she said. I want you to hear that from us, since no one on your side will say it. There is no shame in a hunter who is relieved the killing is over. There is only shame in the ones who taught you there was. Go home, be glad, be different. That is the only revenge we want, and it is not really revenge at all. It is just the truth your council spent a very long time keeping from you. Then she was quiet, and the small gray ships drew toward the rim, and Vesh Korin stood at his pit, between a huntmaster who had named the small ship Prey, and a crew that was learning, for the first time, how to be glad the killing had stopped. And he understood that the audit had reached deeper than any weapon could have. It had not only counted the hound line, it had given the hound line back a thing the council had taken from it so long ago that no living Skarn remembered the taking. It had given them permission to not want this. It was then, with the survivors gathering and the small ships leaving, and the silence on the bridge turned from shame into something gentler, that Drael-san crossed to the open net one last time, to ask the question that had been sitting under everything since the first word. The question a hunter is never supposed to ask, because the answer ruins him for hunting. The question that begins not with a count of the enemies dead, but with a count of the enemies living. Drael-san asked for the one thing a relieved huntmaster had no right to ask, and the small gray ship granted it. "Survey vessel," he said, on the open net, after the throne ship had gone quiet and the swarms had spread to the lanes. "This is Drael-san. I am no longer huntmaster of anything, but I read this hunt from the first word to the last, and I would know one thing before you let the throne ship go. The station, the 340, did any of them live?" There was a pause. When Iris Falk answered, her voice had lost the cold edge it had kept for the war speaker. It was only tired now, and honest. 81, she said. 81 were alive when we reached the way station 4 days ago. We took them off before we came looking for you. They are on a hospital ship 2 systems back, and most of them will keep living, and they will spend the rest of those lives knowing that 259 people who stood next to them did not. That is the number that brought me here, Huntmaster. 81 alive and 259 not. I wanted you to have it, because you are the only one on your side who asked. Drael was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "I named your ship Prey." "You did." "I have named 10,000 things Prey in 41 years. I never once asked whether any of them had a number behind them like that one. I never once thought the soft things counted their own, the way we count our kills." The old hunter's voice had gone very low. "I think I understand now why I could not break you. You were never the small ship in the net. You were the number coming back. There is no weapon that breaks a number coming back. There is only the choice not to make it in the first place. And I made it, 6 days ago, when I called a station Prey." "Yes," Falk said. "That is exactly it. That is the whole of it. You have understood more in 1 hour than your council will understand in 100 years. And that is why I am going to do something I do not usually do. I am going to let you carry the number too. Not as a prisoner, as a witness. Your ship is dark and your pack is gone, and you have no huntmaster's rank left to lose. Go home beside the war speaker, and make sure he tells it true. He will want to lie. You will know when he does. Be the one who corrects him." It was, Vesh thought, the cruelest mercy he had ever read, and the kindest. To send the survivors home together, the ones who had understood, and the one who never would. And to make the ones who understood spend the rest of their lives as keepers of the true number. Drael-san would carry 48,259 home, and he would carry it for the rest of his days, and that was a heavier thing than death, and the small gray ship had known it, and had chosen it on purpose. "Why," Drael said, "why let any of us live?" "Because dead hunters become legends," Falk said. "A hound line destroyed to the last hull becomes a story the next council tells its young to make them angry. A war speaker who comes home alone, with his fleets gone and the true number on his tongue, and 2 readers beside him who will not let him lie, becomes a warning. I do not want to be your legend, Huntmaster. I want to be your warning. Legends get avenged. Warnings get obeyed." The quiet audit turned its scarred nose away from the throne ship and back toward the open rim, and its 9 sisters lifted from the lanes and turned with it, leaving their quiet markers behind, and the 10 small gray ships and their 10 swarms began, unhurried, to leave the grid they had never been trapped in. Vesh watched them go, and he watched the readings, and he understood the last thing, the thing that had been true from the very first word, and that he had not been able to see until now, because he had been looking at it from inside the wrong belief. The quiet audit was a category error, and the error was not in the ship, it was in the word. The Scarn had a word, Prey, and the word meant the thing that cannot. The thing that cannot fight, cannot run, cannot answer, cannot count. For 41 years Drael-san had pointed that word at the soft species of the rim, and been right every time, because the word made its own truth. A thing you were certain could not fight, you did not need to fear, and so you brought your whole pack to watch, and so you handed it everything it needed. The word was the weapon. The humans had simply understood the word better than the Scarn did. They had built a ship, whose entire design was the refutation of a single sentence. The quiet audit could not be broken by guns because it did not fight with guns. It could not be trapped in a net because it used the net. It could not be overwhelmed by numbers because numbers were exactly what it ate. That was the category error. Not that the small ship was secretly large, that the hunters had a category called prey, and the humans had built a thing that fit the category perfectly, and was its exact opposite at the same time, and the two facts together broke the mind of every hunter who tried to hold them. The ship was small and unarmed and alone, and could not fight, and it had ended 48,000 hulls without firing a shot, and both of those were completely true, and there was no place in the Scarn way of thinking where both of them could be true at once, and so the Hound line had simply kept choosing the half it preferred, until the other half ended it. The journey home took the throne ship and the dark hulk of Taro's Maw 11 days, and Vesh spent most of them at his silent pit, because there was nothing else for a reader to do. On the third day, the war speaker tried to compose his report to the council, and Vesh heard, on the private reader's band, the sound of Selavor refusing to certify it. On the fifth day, the war speaker tried again, with the 48,000 recast as losses to a vast ambushing fleet, and again the reader refused, and again, on the seventh day, when he tried to leave the station out of it entirely. Each time the young reader read it true, and would not put her mark to anything else, and each time the war speaker raged at her the way he had raged at Drael, and each time it changed nothing, because the humans had left two readers alive on two ships, and a lie needs the silence of the ones who saw. He will keep trying, Drael said, on the eighth day, standing at the viewport beside Vesh, as the rim of Scarn space drew slowly closer, all the way home, and in the chamber, and for the rest of his life. He cannot help it. A being who has never been told no does not learn it in 11 days. Then we will keep correcting him, Vesh said, all the way home, and in the chamber, and for the rest of our lives. She asked us to. The survey ship asked us to. It is the only duty either of us has left. He looked out at the dark. It is a strange thing, Huntmaster, to have your purpose given to you by the people who ended your fleet. It is the only honest purpose I have ever been given, Drael said. Every other one began with a word like prey. This one begins with a number. On the 11th day, as the throne ship crossed into the home system where the council waited, the long-range scan caught one last reading, and Vesh almost did not report it, because he did not want to be the one to say it aloud. He said it anyway. That was the trade. Huntmaster. There is a small gray ship in the home system, one, holding far out, quiet, doing nothing. It carries the survey registry. It has been here the whole time, waiting, since before we arrived. It is not hiding. It wants us to see it. Drael looked at the single small contact sitting patiently in the heart of Scarn space, deeper than any human ship had ever come, and he understood the last message the audit had left for them, the one it had not needed words for. The humans were not only at the rim, they were already home. They had always been able to come this far. They had simply never had a reason, and now they had left one ship where the council would see it every day, a quiet gray marker in the home sky, the way the 9 sisters had left markers on the lanes. She is not threatening the council, Braille said softly. She is reminding it. Every day, from now on, the council will look up and see the small ship in its own sky, and remember the number, and remember that the answer can come this far whenever it chooses. That is the last line of the audit. Not a weapon, a presence, a no, written in the home sky, that no Huntmaster will ever be able to argue with again. On the open net, faint and patient, and even, the small gray ship in the home system spoke once, the same calm voice that had carried the whole of it from the first word in a grid, 11 days and a galaxy away, and it said only one thing, and then it went silent, and it did not leave. Tell it true, it said. We will be listening. The throne ship Corv Aneth and the dark hulk of Taro's Maw passed it by, and went down to the council, to deliver a number no hunter had ever carried before. And far out past the rim, in the deep patient dark, 10 small gray ships rejoined 40 more, and 40 rejoined a number that even their own readers did not bother to count, because for the humans, the count had never been the point. The point was the correction. And 6 days after a Huntmaster called 340 people prey, the correction had come, exactly as it always did, too far away in time for the powerful to connect the raid to the answer, until the answer was already inside their net, and already in their home sky, and already waiting to hear whether they would tell it true. They had called it prey. The galaxy would spend a long time learning the word the humans used instead, and the word was audit, and it meant the thing that always comes.